everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Scary Stories to Tell from the Rez. I'm your host, Jordan LoneBear. I'm going to welcome all of you guys to come sit down with me by the glow of the fire as we talk about the stories and tell the stories and share the stories that all of our elders, your elders, warned us not to talk about. And I want to say thank you to everybody's patience, and I suppose we can probably address the elephant in the room, which has been my absence. Now, I know I've had a lot of people reaching out asking, where's more stories? We want more stories. And I've had a lot of people telling me how much they love the stories. Well, I guess, to tell the truth, I've had to take a step back from a lot of the projects that I've been doing over the last couple of years due to some personal issues that I've had. I was actually involved in a motorcycle accident almost a year ago. Wow. It's been that long. So I had my own brush with death, if you will. And with that, I luckily came out on the other side. Well, I stayed on this side of the fence. But it's taken a lot of toll. It's taken a huge toll on my mental health, my physical health as well. And I want to make sure that you all are getting the great amount of scary stories. Now, those of you that listen to our true crime podcast, our sister podcast, One Missing, One Murdered, All Indigenous, know that I've actually taken a hiatus and paused the show just so that way I can deal with a lot of the issues that I'm dealing with now. On top of everything, I suppose I'll make a big announcement here on the show. My wife and I are currently expecting our final baby, final one for both of us, here very soon. And so, we've been getting ready. We're getting ready for a new addition to add another to our household as well. And that's coming up very soon, and I'm probably going to announce it and share a little bit once he is here. But I want to say thank you to all of my loyal listeners, and thank everybody that's checked out the story, that shared the podcast and shared it and made it so that way we've gotten here. I've gotten a lot of requests for t-shirts, and I'm currently working on some sweaters. I'm currently working on some pullover jackets and stuff like that with the Spooktober coming, October. We are anxiously awaiting to drop some new merchandise because all of you guys have been amazing at buying up my stuff and sharing your stories. So, with that being said, I think that we should kick the show off with a story that was sent to us anonymously. Ooh. At least I think that's pretty scary. So, without further ado, the first story of the night. I was spending the night at my boyfriend's house, and he lived on the res, but it's considered the res if that makes sense. So anyways, I'd gone to bed before him, and he came to bed later on around 1-ish. 4 a.m. rolled around, and I woke up and felt extremely dehydrated. I was very out of it, so I wandered downstairs. I paused toward the bottom of the steps and noticed that there was an unusually tall figure sitting on his couch. It was so tall, the shoulders were like a foot past the back of the couch. It was just sitting there in the dark. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a water, and came back, and it was still sitting there. Me being petty, thinking it was one of my man's crazy exes. I don't care who you are, but get out. Lock the damn door behind you. I'm not trying to wake up tomorrow morning and take out the trash, I said in a snide tone. The figure turned its head sideways as it acknowledged me, and stood up. Let's just say it was tall. I was way too out of it to be attacked by a titan-looking thing, so I proceeded upstairs. I woke up my boyfriend and laid into him about if he was going to invite trash into the house, at least see it out. We grabbed at each other back and forth, and told him about the figure downstairs. Then we both heard the front door shut. See, I told you, I said. Babe, I swear on my life nobody was here but us. Oh well, that's cool. Your house, you handled that downstairs then, I stated, then rolled back over, and he went back to sleep. I'm okay, he said, as he rolled himself into a burrito and passed out. To this day, we still don't know what it was. Whew. Now, I can't imagine seeing somebody, maybe it was somebody that was tall. I don't know. You guys are you're gonna have to write back in, because who knows what that could have been. It could have been somebody friend, but sitting in the dark like that, maybe a stalker. I don't know. That's got me wondering now. Was it a person? Was it not? What did it look like? I need more details. If you can and you hear us, please send us another story, because we'd love to hear it. Now, as we dive back into another story that was sent to me anonymously, I actually got to talk to this individual, but they preferred to record their stories with me, but they wanted to remain anonymous for fear of, well, for fear of somebody might know who they are. So we agreed to do the interview, and like I've always told everybody, that you guys can send in your interviews. You guys can set up we can talk about them, we can hear them, or we can sit down and you can call me and we'll tell the story. Well, and if you'd like to remain anonymous, we can do this as well. So let's move into our next story from down in the Four Corners area. At least I can say that much. Take it away. Okay, whenever you're ready, you can tell the story.
Okay, right down here, there was like Navajo Rez and Colorado Rez, there's Utah Reservation, right? I remember through Aneth Road, I guess you should call it. Like Aneth Road to Colorado and to Utah. This road right there. This Navajo cop, he showed us like literally on camera. They deleted it, they didn't want to see anybody see it, but there was like a full on, like, it's not a, I don't know if we call it ghost or whatever, but he was like full Native American looking at the road weird. And they didn't want to pass it because that was sacred. Like, he was checking the road like if it was a river or not, but literally this is what a wash was. Where the Utah thing in Colorado was, where there was a wash right there, I guess 100 years ago, but yeah. They saw that ghost there and they turned around like he got out and he told like no, yeah. Sorry, but he got out and said, hey, there's some guy here like and painted like full Native American, not Navajo but full like Ute wise, like he didn't want to cross the road, but he respected it. He was riding a spotted horse and he took off. And that guy came back and he quit like literally that week.
Now, it's got to be unusual to see individuals down there, especially sort of a unusual looking person, especially from down in that area. There's a lot of stories from down in the area, the Four Corners area, that I know of. I've actually enrolled down in the tribe down in that area. So to hear some more stories, this person actually sent in quite a few stories and was able to tell a couple. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll tell these stories tonight.
This is Justin Levitt, a.k.a. Justin St. Native, coming at you from Scary Stories to Tell from the Rez with Jordan LoneBear, reminding y'all to keep it paranormal.
Thanks, Justin. If you guys haven't heard the episode where I got to sit down and talk with Justin St. Native, go check out that episode in the archives that I've got. Where we talk about all the stuff that he's been doing, and I hope to actually sit down with him very soon because I know that he's been dabbling more into the paranormal. So, Justin, thanks again for coming onto the show. Now, let's end not the last story, because I have a lot more to talk about on this show. What do you say we hear about everyone's favorite subject that everyone's always asking me about? Everyone's constantly asking, skinwalkers. Ooh. Once again, this individual was actually sending these stories and telling these stories and wanted to remain anonymous, so that's why the voice is altered, just for protection of this individual as well. So, but without further ado, guys, take it away.
He was an African police officer, like he was driving, he hit a cow that hide rolled out into a man. He had a bunch of like jewelry and shit on him, what he stole, whatever. And he took off. Full on, like, that guy, he thought he had a cow, but that man, like, full on jewelry. He picked up the jewelry, he ran off, he left his cow hide there. He was a skinwalker. A grave robber. I guess you could say. Trying to act innocent as a cow.
Because those skinwalkers, they rob.
Yeah.
Now that's an interesting addition to the skinwalker lore that I myself didn't know and have heard a lot of stories about bad medicine and skinwalkers as a whole. And I've never heard that that was a thing for them, that they would grave rob. If anybody has any more stories about this, I'd love to hear them. I'd love to hear more stories regarding skinwalkers and grave robbing, just because I'm curious now. My interest is piqued. So, but again, I want to say thank you to the individual that was able to call and sit down with me and tell me these stories. And I know that I know that telling these stories is really scary for some individuals because of confidentiality, because of wanting to make sure that their reputation. I know that it's scary to tell these stories. Clearly, they're scary stories. But rest assured, guys, that if you guys would like to write them in, and you guys don't want your names or any details, I'd love to keep you guys anonymous, because I think that the more that we talk about these stories, I think that bring more awareness, because knowing that these things exist out in this world is pretty scary. But what happens when you have an encounter and you feel like you're alone? You feel like you're the only one that's seen it, the only one that experienced it. Who knows? You just might find more stories about, and who knows? We might actually find answers to all of these. But with that being said, again, I want to say thank you. And like I said, you guys can remain anonymous, so let me know, guys. So I know that everybody's been asking where I've been. Everybody's been wondering where the next stories are coming. Well, I actually got a chance to do something big that I've been keeping a little hush-hush, but was able to do it. And I'm actually excited to announce, I know I'm already up on their podcast, but I was able to swapcast with the WOWPod Podcast, which is the Weird Obscure World podcast. And I got to connect with these individuals and talk with them on their show. While we were doing the show, I got to hear a couple of stories from them. And I thought that it would be fun to share their stories with you all, with my loyal listeners. And you guys got to hear them from their perspectives as well. So with that being said, I want to play a couple of their stories here on the show here, so that way you guys can hear. And I'll drop the links in the show at the end for you guys to go check out their show. They cover a lot of amazing paranormal issues, a lot of paranormal subjects. They cover a lot of paranormal subjects, and dedicate a lot of their time to just the weird and obscure. Hence their name. But with that being said, here's a snippet of the WOWPod podcast interview that I got to do, telling their stories. So, that being said, take it away.
And in my particular scary story,
yeah, let's have you, because we've got 20 minutes left, 18 minutes.
In high school, yeah. I lived just outside of the Blackfoot Reservation, and most of the people that went to high school were from the reservation. The Blackfoot tribe was at one point like 20,000. Turn of the century, it was down to 5,000 because of famine and things. And so the way the story was told to me was that during the highest points of famine, when it started first with twins, when a twin was born, that the mother would take it down to a place called the Bottoms.
One of the twins.
And the mother would drown the twin.
Whoa.
So, moving forward, as the famine continues, the buffalo herds had been just decimated by these European settlers, and it became females. So, if you had a female born, and you already had a female at home, the male were the workhorse, the female, so you would take the second female, and it was the mother's job. It was her tribal council to go down and drown the female. So, wow. To this day, down at what they call the Bottoms, it's like the kind of where the river, the Blackfoot River, actually empties out into these little areas where they fish. If you go down there at night, you can hear the babies crying. And so the story is, and it's been passed down, through the elders to the children, is that, first of all, you don't go to the Bottoms at night.
Right.
And if you hear a baby crying, you don't go try to save it. It sounds like it's in distress, but it's actually what they call the water babies. So if the baby is drowned, it becomes a water baby spirit. And to get its revenge, it lures you down to the Bottoms, and then it drowns you. So
Wow.
a friend of mine was like, you don't believe this, but I'll take you out there. We're not supposed to go out on the res.
Yeah.
So she takes me and we, kind of skirt our way around the res and stop in and say hi to her mom or whatever. And she's like, okay, I'm going to run her home. And there's a group of us, another car behind us. And we pull down to these bottoms and she's like, just get out and listen. And you can hear what sounds like babies crying. And I never went back.
Wow.
That was it. But she was like, you can't, and they do sound like babies in distress.
Oh.
And we're not talking, this is barren country.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a lot of wildlife. I've never heard anything like it before. It's pretty like high desert country.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was creepy. It was really creepy. She was like, you hear them all the time out here. They're the water babies. And that's the legend, to stay away from the water and don't go to a crying baby. You never go to save a crying baby.
Man. That's dark. That's freaky.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tough. The having to kill children during famines. Just go read anything about the Holodomor and it's nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting because you can find a lot of those stories in the Ute Tales book out there that we grew up, and we were always told it as kids. But I want to say thank you, because that is the very first water baby story that I've gotten so far, and I've been trying to track those down ever since summer hit. Just because the temperature's out, and the stories like that are they're so prevalent. And I love that the lore behind it was there's actually lore behind it, because my grandma said that when they were kids, she remembers going down this little area, and they actually seen one. They seen a creature. So from the Utes' perspective, they're little creatures. They're not just spirits; they're creatures. And she said that her and her brothers and sisters were getting ready to swim, and they seen on this really big rock. She said they seen this little. She said it looked like hair, looked like long hair, like mossy green hair, and she thought it was moss. But her brother stopped her and told her, like, don't. She goes, why? What is it? He said, don't. And they looked, and he goes, look. So they moved around, and they seen. She said it looked like a little creature, a little thing that was laying there. What they had seen was hair, and that this thing was sunbathing, and. They said, she said that when they had they kind of scared it back in, it had heard the noise and jumped right back into the water. So,
so that story is kind of like the fairy or maybe a mermaid or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and that could be, all the way around.
Yeah.
That is wild. That is why. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. I'll see if I can rush through one of my stories. So, my buddy was building a monster truck, and we wanted to go out to the Skull Valley Res to get a cross member for the transfer case on this monster truck. So me and him and another buddy, we all cruise out there, and about, 200 yards off in the field is the frame that he's pulling this cross member off. And they've got an old shed on there. It's one of those old kind of roughed up slat wood sheds where, a lot of gap between all the wood.
Right.
And inside of there, they've got a 429 Cobra Jet, just like on a pallet, tarp over it. And I was in there looking at that engine, just kind of looking it over, seeing if it's a usable engine still or if it's too roughed up. Buddy and my two buddies are over there wrenching on that cross member, and I hear speaking outside. So I'm like, oh, they must have come back over. So I wander outside, and no one's out there. But then I start hearing, and the shed's big. It's like a 3-room shed, 25 feet long, 12 feet wide, humana. So I start hearing the speaking inside. So I stop and listen, and they're speaking in a different language. They're speaking in, the Go Shoot language. And I'm like, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, all right. some of the people out here messing with me. I knew most of the people out there. My dad knew them. You know, it's not like we were unfamiliar with each other. So I go running inside. I hear the speaking outside again. So I'm like, what the heck? So I start heading over to Russell. I'm walking across the field and I hear footsteps behind me. And it's tall grass, just tall, dead wheatgrass. And I stop and I look behind me and nothing's there. So now I'm walking faster and I hear the footsteps some more. And so I stop, nothing there. So now I'm pretty much running, but I'm looking over my shoulder and I can see the grass being disturbed as I run. So I'm all out. I'm giving the gas is poured on. I run over there. I yell at Russ. I'm like, there's damn ghosts here. He stops what he's doing because he freaks out about ghosts out on the res as well. And our other buddy, another white kid, is dumbfounded, like, what are you guys talking about? And Russ like, get in the car, get in the car, get in the car. We get in the car and we run over to his uncle's house. And his uncle at the time was the chief, the head guy out there. Mm-hmm. And he's not home yet, but his wife is. So his wife invites us in and she's giving us lemonade or whatever, you know, and talking to us. And we told her about what we saw. And she said, oh, they were probably just interested in what the white boy was doing out here. Because down in the bottom of the valley is the old burial grounds. And up on the top of the hill is the new burial grounds. And your shed sits right on the sacred path. Well, what's a sacred path? Well, it's a path we bless so that the spirits could, you know, family members could visit each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I haven't been back to that shed since.
Wow. That's, I can't imagine being able to see something like that chasing you. I mean, of course you didn't see, but I mean.
Yeah, I just saw grass being disturbed. I mean, for all I know, it could have been a pinpoint located breeze, but.
That's extremely pinpointed.
Yeah. And it looked like it was disturbed. I mean, the grass was probably 2.5 feet tall, and it looked like it was being disturbed by legs.
Oof.
Like it had a step to it. And that was all she wrote for me. Yeah. And Russell didn't go back out there to that shed for a long time. I don't know. I'm sure.
But who built the shed on the sacred path? I want to know.
Yeah, right.
Path came after the shed.
You don't put a sacred path through a shed.
They built it in a straight line.
Planning.
Right.
People.
There's a communication breakdown there somewhere. Somebody didn't talk about that.
You don't want to make your 100 times over great grandpa take the long route. Right?
Oh.
I mean, at the risk of being haunted, I mean, grandpa can walk around the shed, so he's fine.
It's like, it's a couple extra feet.
And it's his property. You know, it's his property. But yeah, I don't care what anyone says. The indigenous reservations carry special ground or a special aura with them.
Oh yeah.
And it is there. Just like old cemeteries do. There's a special aura there, and it might be a combination of tragedy and longevity. Who knows what it is, or just that
the spiritual connection.
Or even that even at a time when technology rolls in, a lot of them still live a more traditional and open to spiritual way, which may cause that. I don't know what it is, but there is, and I've got a couple more stories, so you're going to have to come back on sometime.
All right, guys. Again, that's the Weird Obscure World Podcast, or the WOWPod Podcast. And I had an amazing time to be on the show to tell their stories. I actually told a couple of stories, one that you guys might have heard, kind of. So I've told quite a few stories on the show, but I haven't told all the stories that I have. So if you want to hear more of my stories, my personal stories, the ones that I've been telling or have told several, You guys are going to have to go check it out on the WOWPod Podcast. You guys can go check them out at their website, the WOWPod.com, and scroll through their libraries of things that they've talked about. You can also find them. They have links to all of their shows where you can find them. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, and don't forget to check out their social media platforms, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, to which the links will be here in the show notes. Again, I want to say thank you to Jared and everybody that made me feel welcome to come onto the show, and I highly recommend going to check them out. They are Utah-based as well as I am. So again, thanks, guys. And with that being said, everybody, I think that's going to take us home for the night. I know that everybody wants to hear more stories, and don't forget, guys, you guys can send your stories in to me directly. You guys can send them at scarieststories@gmail.com. You guys can write them out anonymously. You can record them. You can set up a time for me to call, and we can record the conversation that way. I also am on TikTok at Scary Rez Media. TikTok, that's the TikTok handle, as well as on Facebook, Scary Stories to Tell from the Rez, and so much more. You guys can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube. But with that being said, guys, I want to say thank you guys, and keep an eyeball out, because I know that everything's been pretty sporadic. And like I said at the top of the episode, that I have so many things going on, but I want to bring you guys the best in paranormal podcasting as I can. Once again, everybody, thank you guys for listening, and I want to remind all my listeners, as you guys go out into the world, I want to remind everybody, all of us here at Scary Stories to Tell from the Rez, to stay safe, stay blessed, but most of all, stay scary. Scary Stories to Tell from the Rez is a LoneBear Productions. All music and sound is provided by Pond 5 Media.